Recording in progress.
When we picked the topic for tonight's
Yeah.
love intervention, I thought this is for my younger self. So, hi, younger selves that are
Hi,
joining
younger
us.
Orna.
Hi. So tonight we're talking about boundaries, the B word. Last love intervention, we talked about the C word, conflict, and today we're talking about the B word, boundaries. So I want to know who out there thinks right now, well, what do you mean you're talking about boundaries? In an intimate relationship, you shouldn't have any boundaries. Who thinks that? Type I do in the chat. I want to hear from my younger selves. I know you're out there. Because I used to think, what do you mean there should be boundaries? I thought, well, if you're in love with somebody, if I'm in love with somebody and they're in love with me, then we come together and there shouldn't be anything between us.
You just merge into one big being.
Yeah, and there's a big problem with that. If you're somebody like my younger self, boy, you're leaving yourself open to be taken advantage of by people who want to take advantage of you.
Really?
Yeah.
Tell us more.
Well, the reality is respectful love has a boundary. So when we talk about long-lasting and soul-satisfying love, like where you share your life with somebody year after year, decade after decade, and you're like in it to win it with them, then yes, you need some healthy boundaries. If you don't have healthy boundaries, then there's always a mess between you.
Right.
And you can't clean things up because there aren't any boundaries. And so in my younger versions of me, my younger self, I would go into sacrifice. And I
Okay.
would think, oh, if I just give everything to my partner that he wants, then, oh, you know what? I thought he would reciprocate.
Yeah. Oops.
Okay, who else? Ladies, who's guilty? Who
Anybody?
thinks when you give and give and give to a man that somehow he'll turn around and give back to you? Maybe?
Maybe.
Anybody? It's crickets out there. We're going to keep talking. By the way, this is Love Intervention. I'm Orna Walters.
And I'm Matthew Walters, and we are here to intervene in your love life, get you off the path of frustration and heartbreak, and on the path of long-lasting, soul-satisfying love. We'd love to hear, who's ever here, just jump on and say hi, type in the chat where you're from. We'd love to
Yeah.
see who everybody is.
And I want to know those younger versions of me that are joining us now. And I don't care if you're older than me, that's okay too. You could be a younger version of me in present day or relates to being that younger version of me and maybe you're not anymore. But who struggles with this boundary issue? I would think everybody showed up tonight live, and we have quite a large group tonight, so I don't know why y'all so quiet. We're going to open it up for questions. We do it every love intervention, but we always have an episode topic to sort of grease the wheels, and you can ride that wave, or you can ask us anything you like at all. Krista. I do. That's why you're here tonight, isn't it, Krista? You said you have trouble with your mom, too.
Yeah.
So setting boundaries with people we care about and people we love can be difficult because just like the topic said, right, is having boundaries, like are boundaries selfish? And so that was a lot of my miscommunication when I was younger. I thought, oh, well, I don't want to be selfish. I think I'm a little bit considerate.
A little bit. She took a test once. We both took this test. It's hilarious. So I think I'm about 10% considerate. You're funny. I think it was around 10. But Orna was 100% considerate. So,
it's
I think she's a better person than me, maybe. I don't know. Maybe I'm just selfish.
No.
I'm joking. I don't think I'm selfish. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about our boundaries selfish, because when you need to take care of yourself,
that's not selfish.
That's not selfish, right? We always say you got to fill your own cup first and serve from your overflow. And that's not just from us. I think, where did we originally hear that? Lisa Nichols, I think, told you that.
I think
it's
Lisa
been
Nichols
around a
told me
while,
that.
right? It's been around
way back before anybody knew who she was.
This idea that you have to fill your own cup first before you're in the place to give to somebody else. Now that's partially boundaries, but let's talk more about this idea, because boundaries are about emotions and knowing whose emotions you're responsible for and whose are yours and whose aren't yours. Because the thing about emotion is energy. Well, hold on a second. Let me explain. Emotion is energy, and you want to think about it like water. So I have a glass of water here, And if we were to take a knife, right, and we were to like cut the water in half with the knife, what happened to the water, right? Did we do anything? No, we did not. We did not divide the water, because water takes the shape of its container.
You made me thirsty.
Emotional energy is like that as well. Emotional energy, when we're sensitive in this way, when we're empathic, when we have issues with boundaries, right, that it gets confusing. It gets all mixed together. And so you think that often as people think about it this way, how can I behave? How can I communicate in such a way as to not upset my partner?
Bing, 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 bing,
right?
bing.
That's
bing,
a boundary
bing.
issue right there, because you're already thinking that you are in control of your partner's emotions, or your mother, or whoever else.
Well, I mean, I do think, you don't have to be empathic or sensitive or any of that to get confused about boundaries, because I think in our world, there's so many misconceptions about what a healthy relationship actually, what that dynamic looks like. And so in a healthy relationship, there are boundaries, because respectful love has a boundary. And I grew up in a home where I love you literally meant I could do anything to you. I could beat you physically. I could damage you emotionally, and it wouldn't matter, because I love you. Right. And so even
because you're part of me.
Yeah, there's no separation. There was in my family of origin no boundaries. And I was talking with a friend the other day where there's also a big boundary issue between her. She's the older sister, but the younger sister keeps not having boundaries and literally talking to her sister's kid, her nephew, about her mother, the mother of that kid. And it's like so inappropriate, because boundaries are a serious issue. So, and that's why we wanted to talk about this, because it's an issue around the globe, and people don't know where to set them, and they think it's selfish to set them, or if they set them after they haven't for a while, it's sort of, we call it like the midterm backlash.
Right, it's like you put up this brick wall.
Yeah, it's suddenly like, boom, it's like this Great Wall of China, right? And so we kind of teased it up a little bit that we're going to tell you about when it's okay to wiggle on your boundaries and when it's not. And I just want you to know that if you've not been setting any boundaries at all, start small. It's like anything else. You want to practice, you want to see how that feels, and you can set a boundary. The reason why boundaries are so important, and to know where yours are, is when we meet somebody, like through the dating process, we teach them how to treat us. We teach somebody how to treat us. And I think that's so important, because I think people don't realize it. There are these crimes, like literally against the law things, these crimes that happen because they're a crime of convenience. They're convenient crimes, right? Like I had a girlfriend, she had 2 little kids, both in strollers. Her wallet fell on the sidewalk, and by the, coming from the house, right, the street into the house, her wallet fell onto the sidewalk. And by the time she got the kids inside and everything, she's like, oh, where's my wallet? And she went outside just to see this guy running off with her wallet. Now, that guy didn't, grab her purse out of her hands.
He wasn't stalking her and waiting for an opportunity to steal her wallet or anything like that.
But this person definitely scooped up the wallet and ran on by, right? It was a crime of convenience. And what I want to say, you're leaving yourself open to a crime of convenience if you don't know how to set boundaries. Yeah, it may not be a criminal offense, but give me the artistic license, if you will, in painting this picture, because it's this thing where when we used to do our live event, and we'll be getting back to those at some point, but I used to say, I love Matthew, and here he is, right? He's standing right here, and I say, but it's not okay for me to do anything to Matthew. I mean, it doesn't matter how much I love him. It's not appropriate, wouldn't be appropriate for me, say, to spit in his face right now, or to smack him across the face.
No.
Or, right? There's lots of things I could talk about that's not appropriate for me to do. And we talk about this a lot when we talk about emotions, right? And what we do with our emotions. Like, all of your emotions are appropriate, whatever you're feeling. The actions you take when you feel them, some of those might not be appropriate. Like, if I'm angry at Matthew, that's perfectly acceptable. If I'm angry at Matthew and I kill him, that's not acceptable, right? So I'm using hyperbole to make my point, because boundaries are so important. And when you set a boundary with somebody, it doesn't have to be the Great Wall of China. Those are very difficult, especially the closer you are to somebody.
Right.
So let's think of a dartboard, and you're the bullseye. You're the center of the dartboard. The rungs that continue going from closer to you, right, that keep going out further and further away from you. So the rungs in the closest to you are the people closest to you. And the biggest mistake people make when we do this diagram is they automatically put family in the inner circle, close to them. And that may not be true. It may not be true that everybody in your family is good at setting and keeping healthy boundaries, or good at communication, or good at everyone at your...
or knows how to be respectful. Or,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so respectful love comes with a boundary, because it doesn't mean that you always get it right. You can make a request, and setting up a boundary with somebody is about really telling them what is acceptable and not acceptable to you. But we get tripped up when we're in intimate relationship because it is human to get triggered. So here's the gray part instead of setting the Great Wall of China. Because when we're triggered, and that means your emotions have gotten the better of you and your emotions are heated, that just means you're human, and it is part of your humanness. And if you don't like that part of you, then you need a coach or a therapist or somebody to help you be okay being here on planet Earth with a bunch of other humans that also get triggered. I mean, I aspire to be an enlightened master one day, and then maybe I don't get triggered.
Yeah.
Maybe. I mean, I'm working on it, but I don't know. I'm 57, so I better hurry up. I'm not going to get there.
You got another 40, 50 years to figure
I
it
hope
out.
so. I hope I get there. I'll let you know. I'll let you know in 40 years how I'm doing. But I aspire to that. But in the meantime, I want to say getting triggered doesn't mean you're bad. It doesn't mean you didn't handle things well. When we actually talk about emotional mastery is how you behave when you recognize you're triggered. So let's use an analogy. I know for me, and I don't want to toot my own horn, so I'm just going to ask you for backup here.
Sure.
I have a very high level of integrity. It's very
Yes.
difficult for me to go against my integrity. Yes?
Yes, it's true.
Yes.
She has
Everybody
a very
that
high
knows
level
me,
of integrity.
Very high level of integrity. And I used to think that that meant I would have to be in some way perfect and do things perfectly, which when I was aspiring for that, I was miserable and somewhat suicidal, and my life was horrible. And when I suddenly realized I don't have to be perfect because nobody's perfect,
Right.
and I cut myself some slack, and there isn't somebody waiting to hurt me or beat me or get on me for not being perfect, because that's the home I grew up in. So
Right.
as soon as I cut me some slack and I'm not walking around on eggshells trying to be perfect, remember when that happened and I relaxed?
Oh, I remember the day. Remember the exact day that happened.
You're funny.
You're funny.
What was the day? I mean, so here's the thing. So when you are triggered, you may say things and do things you regret. And that's about cleaning things up. But when somebody else does those things, they also get to make amends and apologize. And so you can't set a boundary around someone's behavior. And I think sometimes people think setting up boundaries means you tell somebody that you can't behave a certain way.
Right.
Like if I were to say to Matthew, you can't raise your voice at me ever again, or I'm out of here.
Right, that's the boundary you're setting.
Yeah, ooh, that sounds that's
Right.
uncomfortable to even make those words with my mouth.
Yeah, and I think the difference would be instead to say something like, if you raise your voice around me, I'm not staying in the room with you.
Yes, now
That's a boundary.
see, that's a healthy boundary.
Right?
there.
Because you're the one taking responsibility. You're not trying to control another person.
Yep.
Right? And that's oftentimes, this is what happens with people in boundaries, is they get confused. They say, your behavior is triggering to me, so you need to stop that behavior. And that's a boundary I'm setting for you. But you can't set boundaries for
That's a big
other
thumbs
people.
down. You
right?
can't.
You can only set boundaries for yourself.
Yeah.
You can only set boundaries for your behavior and what you're willing to tolerate, what you're willing to put up with. And if you're saying, I'm not willing to put up with that anymore, and there are consequences to that behavior, you're the one that's responsible for acting on that, right? You're the one that says, okay, you've crossed a boundary. I am now exiting the situation. I am
taking
now
a pause, I'm
ending
taking
the
a
phone
break.
call. I'm taking a pause. I'm going to go for a walk. Whatever it is you are the one creating space. Because it's your behavior that sets the boundary, not the other person's.
That was really good.
Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions so far about this? Because I think this is really important, and I think we started digging in a number of different ways. And what we want you to understand is that setting a boundary is self-care.
Mm-hmm.
And so setting a boundary...
The opposite of selfish.
Yes. It's not selfish to set a boundary. It's so important because it's one of the skill sets for lasting love. Because respectful love says you are not... You and I love each other, but we are not the same person, mm-mm. Right? Like Matthew and I are actually two different people. We have two brains and 4 eyes between us and 2 mouths and 4 hands.
I know it's confusing sometimes because we're always talking together.
Yeah,
and we write together and we speak together
yeah.
and we coach together. But we're two separate people with
we're not literally
very
attached.
Different life experiences.
Yeah, we're not
two
attached
very different strategies for dealing with the world.
Oh,
and
yeah.
A lot of different ideas in our head about what we pay attention to, what's important to us.
I'll give you a great example.
Okay.
Way back in 2013, we did this big media tour. We were on all these morning shows, and I realized that Matthew was like in the corner, like didn't want to talk to me before we walked out on the set, and I was like panicked because I was like, dude, we need to be connected. And he's like, oh, I have my whole thing I do. So when he gets anxious, he doesn't want to be like stuck to me, and I was like, okay. Can we have a few minutes to connect before we walk out there? Because if I feel disconnected from you, it's not going to look pretty when we go out there to talk on this TV show. And so he's like, oh, yeah, I can do that. I was like, okay. And so that was my request. So I made a request, like, hey, can we do this? And he was like, oh, yeah, that is important. We do need to be connected before we go out there. Okay, great. And so I waited for him. I did my warm-ups and my stuff or whatever, and then he'd come over and like, okay, I'm ready to connect with you now. I'm like, okay. Like when the stage manager knocked on the door, it's like, excuse me, Mr. and Mrs. Walters, 5 minutes or whatever. 5 minutes, please.
What I love about this story is we both got what we needed. Yeah. Right? Orna needed to feel connected before we went out there.
Yeah.
And we do that actually right before we get on with this or any other thing we're doing. We make sure to connect. Yeah, most of the time, unless we're rushed. But then we even try to take a moment to do it. And I need my own space to just deal with the own mishigash in my own head. So that I can be centered and grounded and present. And both of us need those things. Now, we can think that those needs are in conflict, and we can fight, and we can have a tug-of-war about it, right?
But that's not going to accomplish the goal.
But that's not going to accomplish the goal, because then neither of us are going to get what we want, right? So we're straying a little bit away from boundaries to wants and needs, but I think it's all part of the same idea. So we've had a bunch more people jump on since we started, so we'd love to hear from you. Just let us know where you're from and if you're resonating at all with what we're talking about, if this makes sense.
Where you're from, really? We've never done that on Love Intervention.
Yeah, we
really?
do. We always check in with where they're from.
All right, where are you joining us from?
Where are you joining us from?
Where are you right now? Not where did you grow up, but
right.
Where are you physically in this moment? Why don't you let us know in the chat? Where are you right now? You can say city, country, state, whatever. We want to hear what's going on with you, where you are. So north of Boston, right on. And, here's the thing about boundaries that I think perplexes people is because they don't know where to set it, or it becomes this like moving target.
Mm-hmm.
It's like if you do that again, and then, they do it again, and then you're like, but I still love you, so I'm going to, what do I do now? Right? And it's like this craziness inside of us. Because again, the boundary isn't about telling someone else, you can't do that, or you shouldn't do that. You can tell them, I don't like it. You can tell them how you'll respond should they do that thing again, right? Like Matthew made a great statement, right? Like we were play acting in that little, so if you raise your voice at me, I'm going to walk away. I'm going to take a pause. I'm leaving the room, right? And so a lot of those things are ground rules that you get to set with somebody as you get to know them better and better and better. And the better and better and better you get to know somebody, and the more and more time you spend with them, the easier it is to think you know everything about them.
Mm-hmm.
And so the boundaries are important so that you remind them of what is important to them.
Yeah.
And I think it's really important you need to share what's going on with you, not what's going on with you about their behavior, not your opinion about their behavior.
Right.
Do you see the difference? Because a lot of times I think people set a boundary by saying, you can't do that to me. And that's not, nobody likes that. It feels so icky. I can't like, ugh, like I feel like there's ants crawling all over me or something. Like, ew, right? It's icky to be spoken to that way. So again, in our practice of using I language, you can say, I don't care for it when you raise your voice at me. It's a great example. You know, I would like to be spoken to kindly, and if you're to raise your voice again, I'm going to remove myself from that situation until you calm down, and you can let me know when you're calm, and we can come together and try to talk about it. And so it is normal and human, and everybody gets triggered. And I just want to keep saying that because people think that they're going to somehow evolve. I mean, I've been working on not being triggered now. I don't know, meditating for a long time, 3 decades or so, different kinds of meditation practices. What do we got there?
We have Stephanie, who joins from Wilmington, and she says this is really sweet. She says, this most definitely resonates. I've been reading and learning so much about boundaries, learning to speak up for myself with clear and kind boundaries. I love that. It's definitely not about controlling, just bringing awareness to what is and is not acceptable and what you will and will not tolerate. That is exactly
Beautifully stated.
Beautifully stated. Thank you both for sharing everything so far. So, I mean, there's so many ways that people push your boundaries, right? One of the ways that's been showing up in our lives a lot lately is
in our lives
a lot lately. Sorry, that's a lot of L words. Is that when somebody goes around your back to send a message to you, it's like Orna gave the example of, you know, our friend who her sister calls up her nephew and says, you need to talk to your mom, or you know, complains about her mom to the nephew, right? The sister complains to the nephew about his mother, exactly. Yeah. Or you know, when a friend reaches out and is constantly complaining about a spouse, right, and using you as their sounding board and their place of vomiting all their frustration about somebody else in their life, right? These are different kinds of boundaries. It's not necessarily one-on-one directly like this, but it's this sideways way that people like vent and express themselves in hopes that it comes around to you because they're using the other person as the messenger.
Yeah, and I had lunch with a friend the other day, and she was telling she and I have a lot in common, and we both, you know, grew up with mothers that weren't very nurturing, and so we know we have this in common. And we were talking about particular friendships, and I didn't know these particular women that she was telling me about, but they had said something to her like, people ask us, it was two friends of her, friends, I'm putting in air quotes, people ask us why we're even still friends with you. And I was like, holy well, what?
That's
like,
weird.
It was, yeah. And again, the boundaries, like
right.
She set a boundary, and the healthy boundary she set was, I don't think this is appropriate. If this is the dialogue that you think is appropriate to have with me, then I don't think we should be friends anymore. And she ended the friendship with these two people. And it's about setting a boundary. And I know it's one of the most difficult things, especially as we get older. It often gets harder to make friends. And I know I've been somebody who's had the breakup with girlfriends before, and there's quite a few really good friends I had to move on from because when I set a boundary, they didn't like it. And I realized that ultimately they tried to get me to feel, tried being the optimum word, they wanted me to feel selfish for asking for my needs to be met.
Right.
And it is not selfish ever to ask for your needs to be met. So if you want to divide things up, your needs in any relationship are not negotiable. Ding. Your wants are negotiable. So we said, when do you wiggle on the boundaries? When do you not wiggle on the boundaries? Right. Your needs, not negotiable. Your wants, totally negotiable. Now here's the thing about your needs. Sometimes people think, well, I need A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. No. No. That's not fair. Some of those are wants. Your needs are not negotiable. And the thing is, your needs are not inherently intuitive to people that know you. So you have to know what you need and then ask for it.
Right.
Like Matthew and I, one of our highest values is connection. And so when we're disconnected from each other, it's very difficult for us to stay disconnected for very long. well, first off, we can't get any work done. So thank you for making that helpful for us. Because you guys are counting on us to show up for you. And so we can't stay very disconnected very long. I mean, either we have to go to work and do something, or we just have to live our life and do something. And it feels weird. It feels uncomfortable.
Because we're not going off for 8 hours to a separate job that's separate from our relationship.
You know, we have a unique, and sometimes I'm going to say, you know, if we had a lower third text right now, I'd have our team like blink something like, please don't try this at home. Please don't try this at home. Please don't try this at home. Like, there are very few relationships that are built like ours where you work together and are married to each other. So that's a whole different conversation for another day. Hey, you know what? If y'all want that for a future Love Intervention topic, by all means, let us know. Say yes, talk about yourselves in a different Love Intervention.
Right,
we'll pick it for another
how do you
day.
make that work?
Yeah, because it's not for everybody. Not everybody requires that. Oddly enough, Matthew and I, as single people, both really wanted that kind of life before we ever knew each other. We both really wanted a life where our personal and professional lives were intertwined. And it was something we each dreamed up independently of one another before we ever knew each other. So we are kind of built for it, and it shows up in a lot of ways. If you're somebody who gets a lot of different readings, we are. So we've had I've had every kind of reading. I know you too have had a lot of different readings. So it shows up in a lot of our charts, because every time we get a reading done together, the first thing that person always says is, oh, I see how you two get to spend so much time together and still love each other.
Exactly.
And I was like, I don't even know what that means. It's weird. Of course we love each other.
Yeah. I want to go back, if you don't mind.
Please.
Jump in here.
To boundaries?
I want to go back to the to the dartboard, because I think this is such a great analogy.
I like that.
So the center of the dartboard, that's you. You're the only person that belongs in the center of the dartboard. The next rung out are those people. Orna belongs right there, right? Those people who are close to you, who you can trust, who have proven over time they're trustworthy, that
They've
they can
earned the benefit of the doubt.
Exactly. And so those people in that first rung outside of the bullseye, they have the most wiggle room in terms of making mistakes, in terms of screwing up, because like Orna said, they've earned the benefit of the doubt. They've proven over time that they love you, they're here for you, and you trust them. And so if they make a mistake, or if they behave badly, you give them a lot of wiggle room. There's a lot of gray with that.
Because they're allowed to have a bad day.
They're allowed to have bad days. And then there's the next rung, right? And those are close friends and all of that. And then you start moving out from there.
Out and out and all the way to
all the way to that outer. And then there's some people that don't even belong on the dartboard. And those are the people
you don't know them.
You push them out of your life for some reason. So,
or you don't know them.
Orna said this earlier. I think this is important to bring up again. She said, your family, because they're family, does not automatically earn the right to be in that first or second rung, because they may not be people who have good boundaries, who can love you respectfully. I have a couple siblings that they're on the outer edge, right?
And here's how you know. So where do you put somebody? You have to evaluate that person's capacity. This is one of the most important life skills, is to evaluate another person's capacity.
Right.
One of my dearest friends several years ago had an oral surgery, and I offered to drive her home. She was like, oh, I'll take a lift. I knew that I had oral surgery like the year before. And I was like, I know, you can't.
You're not going to want to do that.
They won't let you.
Yeah.
No, they literally, you have to sign a thing saying, you need a human that's going to take care of you that afternoon. And maybe it's through the evening. And so I was like, let me drive you home. So she calls me, I can't take a lift. I was like, an Uber, whatever. And I was like, I'm absolutely, and she was like, it was so uncomfortable for her to receive that, even though we've been friends literally for decades.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm so happy, please, I'm so happy to do this for you. And then when I got her home, and then there was this kind of a mix-up about her medications, because she had picked some up, but then there were other things she got at the office when we brought back home, but there was something missing, and something still needed to be picked up at a pharmacy, and I'm on the phone with the office, with her oral surgeon, and then she's in the other room, and she is not supposed to talk. She just had oral surgery, within an hour, and she starts yelling, that's not what the blah, 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 and I was like, oh my God, because she was yelling. And we got in this kerfuffle because somebody's talking in my ear, here saying one thing, and then she's saying something else, and I'm feels caught in the middle. And she is really upset, and she's upset with me. And I was like, oh. And then it was so funny because I thought to myself, what does Matthew do when I'm upset like this? No, just don't laugh like that. I mean, you could chuckle, but don't keep laughing.
I think it's funny you would say that.
Because I know I've been that upset. And I was like, what does Matthew do when I'm upset? And I literally started repeating what Matthew does. And I haven't been that upset in a long time. But
No.
there was like this thing where I was like, suddenly it clicked in. I was like, I'm so sorry. I hear you. Please forgive me. I'm so sorry. What do you need? That was it. I'm sorry. What do you need? I'm sorry. What do you need? And I just kept.
It was I love you. What do you need?
I'm sorry. I love you. What do you need?
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah.
And I just kept saying it so long ago. I don't remember. I don't get upset like that with you so much.
No, I know.
So I was like, but suddenly I was like, what was that thing? And I was like, oh. And I just kept saying that. What do you need? And finally it sunk in. And as I was saying it, I calmed down and my blood pressure decreased. And eventually, and I got her a notepad and I said, and I said, I can write also instead of talk. You're not supposed to talk. Can we please? And we worked it out. And here's the thing. I love this friend. And I could have taken it personally. And I could have been like, forget it. I tried to do a good thing and you got upset with me and blah, blah, blah.
And stormed out and left her by herself.
Yeah, or whatever. I could never have done that.
I know.
But I'm just saying, but instead I was like, she's allowed to have a bad day. She's allowed to, literally we've been friends since we were kids. And so I was like, I remember like, she was like, I'm so sorry. And I was like, it's so okay. Like, it's so okay. And the thing is when you're able to cut yourself some slack like that, and you don't have this unrealistic expectation of self that you're like a superhero, it's way up there, superhero-dom. So I always say, ladies, you don't have to be Wonder Woman, just be woman. Take the wonder away, just take the wonder off. Circle, line through it, no more wonder, just be woman.
Yeah.
And guys, you don't have to be Superman, just be man. It's okay. We have such an unrealistic expectation of self. And so with boundaries, like everything else, they take practice.
Mm-hmm.
So the person who, I'm just not going to say your name because I know who you are, that said I have trouble with boundaries with my mom in the chat, I'm going to say, hey, you know what? With your mom, start small. Set a simple boundary. Maybe she just drops by whenever or something. And you can say, you know what? I would really appreciate it if you would ring me before just stopping by and knocking on my door.
Mm-hmm.
Or something. I don't know, something simple. I start with something small that seems simple and then build on from there. And when you've had that kind of relationship where it's gone on for decades and decades, you get to cut yourself some slack, a little extra slack. You get to cut the other person some slack, and you just gently remind them. And you say, look, I love you, and I would like this. Because if you do that thing, I'm going to have to just get my part and have some space until we come together again.
Yeah.
I want to know some questions from people.
Yeah, hopefully we have some questions.
Love Intervention.
We've got a good group here.
Hi, everybody. I'm Orna Walters.
I'm Matthew Walters, and this is Love Intervention. We are here to intervene in your love life, to get you out of the path of frustration and heartbreak and on the path to long-lasting, soul-satisfying love. We know it's possible for you. That's why we do this every couple of weeks here.
Well, here's what I want to do.
Yeah.
Because if we had commercials,
it
would be a commercial break.
Let's take a commercial break. Okay,
we're going to take a commercial break. That doesn't mean you're going to go anywhere.
Nope, stay with us.
We're going to turn the sound up. Just kidding. Just like your TV does, right? And so, we've got a program. We have 3 people beg us to do it again.
Yeah.
And so we weren't going to necessarily do it again. If you didn't hear our big news, if you'll, it's an advertisement for us. Orna and Matthew Walters have signed a book deal with Penguin Random House. Oh my gosh, you did?
Gosh.
Yes!
Yes!
Woo! So we're writing a book. It's our life's work in a book, and that takes some time, kids. So we weren't sure we were going to do this again. We've pulled back on some of our coaching hours, so we have time to write a book. Mm-hmm. And so our little commercial break is if you want to join us for this year's only group program, Love on Purpose Mentoring. The mentoring program is great. It's for anybody. So if you're here right now, if you're a man, join us. If you're a woman who dates women, great, join us. If you're married, great, join us. If you're separated, join us. If you're dating, join us. If you've never been on a date in like a decade, it's okay, join us. Because what's great about Love on Purpose Mentoring is all of it is tailored for you. Everybody gets, I said it like Oprah.
Yeah.
You get a love seat. You get a love seat. Everybody gets a love seat twice.
Yeah.
You wanna
So
explain a bit
Love
more?
on Purpose mentoring, you bring your agenda. You say, this is what I need to work on right now in my love life.
Yep.
This is the piece that I keep stumbling up against.
Yep.
And if you don't know what that is, don't worry. We can help you figure it out. We're
Yep.
really good at that. That's what we do. And we're going to get in there. We're not just going to give you cognitive coaching like we do here on Love Intervention. There's a secret piece that you can only get when you coach with us in the Love Seat or private coaching or in a live program.
It's the Walters
It's the
method.
Walters method, the Walters process work that we created. It is about accessing your subconscious mind and changing your old emotional stories, making you more resourceful so you can be more yourself. Right?
So,
Oftentimes people
yeah.
think that if they changed the way they are, they're going to be a different person. No, you're not going to be a different person. You're going to be more you. And
Yeah.
what that means is you're going to be more present. You're going to be more able to access yourself. You're going to be more able to do what you need to do to get what you want.
So here's the thing. This is where we say if you want to learn to love like you've never been hurt, come coach with us. And that's what Love on Purpose mentoring is all about. You don't lose the knowledge though that you've had. It's not like love like you've never been hurt. Forget those experiences. No, not amnesia. It's the Walters processes. We created them. They're proprietary. I don't know. Some people call them visualizations. Some people call them meditations. None of those words really capture what it is, but it's experiential learning. We find that a lot of people have all this undigested knowledge in their head. If you could imagine all these people walking around smoking cigarettes every day, I'm sorry if you're one of them, but you have the information, you have the data, you have the science that says that smoking those cigarettes are bad for your health and will shorten your life, and yet you can't help, you're addicted and you keep smoking those cigarettes. So a lot of times people get a lot of advice about dating and mating and relating, and it's all this undigested knowledge in their head. Our Walters processes makes the learning experiential. You have a new experience in the Love Seat. You can't then unhave the experience, just like riding a bike. So join us for Love on Purpose mentoring. We would love to have you in our Love Seat. And it's going to be a lot of fun. A theme always emerges. And I think that's our little commercial break.
Yeah, go to loveonpurposementoring.com.
And it's a small group.
Loveonpurposementoring.com.
Yeah, it's so it's a small group. So I'm just going to say that again. It's for a small group. So in other words, P.S. it's going to sell out, and we start on the September the 9th. Oh, and just so you know, I don't think this is the only thing that's not on the website.
Okay.
It's Wednesdays and Saturdays.
It is
Wednesday
evenings
and
and
Saturday mornings
Saturday
Pacific
mornings.
time. So the thing is, when you see the dates and times, you get to let us know when you're not available. So like if you're in a time zone where it's the middle of the night for one of those days, that's okay. They're all recorded, so you can catch up with the recordings and be in the Love Seat when it's not a weird time for you. It always works out, I promise you. We do the schedule, so don't worry about it. We'll take care of it. You just let us know when you're not available, and we'll take it from there. Everybody gets 2 turns in the Love Seat. We'll make sure of that.
Back to our regularly scheduled programming.
Hi, welcome back to
Hi,
Love on
welcome
Purpose.
back to Love on
Love
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 Intervention.
Intervention. Love on Purpose Intervention.
Love on Purpose
That's what I
Intervention.
was going to say.
All right, so we're talking about boundaries today. We would love your questions. We do have a question here that we're going to dive into, but also just type into the chat if you have a question. So this question that says, my question is about time boundaries. Okay, I love to plan my life. My fiance is way more spontaneous, can only think about a few days in advance. As people who met in their early 40s, we've been independent for a long time, trying to strike a balance between me/alone time, couples time, and particularly me, fun time going out with friends, dancing, all that kind of stuff that he might not want to attend. Sometimes I feel bad going out without him. Most of the time he's fine with it, and other times he seems mad that I have plans all the time, even though I've pared back to allow for me alone time and couples time. I know he needs way more unstructured time than I do. All right, differences, right?
Yeah.
Navigating your differences.
Navigating these.
This is a relationship.
And this is kind of a boundaries thing, and it's kind of not. I mean, here's the thing. This sounds vaguely familiar to somebody I know who can only refuel when he's all alone and needs some downtime. And oh my gosh, he needs a putter day. Who is that? Who can I be talking about?
This guy with 2 thumbs.
Do
Who
you-
has 2 thumbs and needs a putter day?
Unstructured time. We call that in our house
Putter time. A putter day.
once upon a time I made a little coupon book for Matthew. Honestly, we didn't have any money for me to buy him a gift. So I made him a coupon book. So in the coupon book, there are all kinds of things. But I remember making the coupon book, and there was one where it says, a putter day. And then you go through the coupon book, and then later on in the coupon book, there's another coupon, and it says, another putter day, because you love them so much. And by the way, there's all kinds of things in that coupon book. One of them, Matthew has never pulled out that coupon in all these years together. It said, you're right. Pick the fight. I don't care.
I get to be right, meaning?
We'll stop fighting. You're right. The fight is over. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. You're one. You've never pulled that coupon out.
I haven't.
Ever in all these years. So
Yeah.
it's sitting, I don't know where, in his little box, memorabilia box. He's got one. All right. So here's the thing about people needing different things. You want to give that person time. The putter day is a day where Matthew gets to do whatever he wants. Now, he may work on his honey-do list of getting things done around the house, but he may not. Because Orna, that would be me, I will not ask him to do anything.
Exactly right. So, putter days are refueling days. I think it's generally a male thing, but I'm sure there are women who like to just have unstructured putter time as well. But I know it is definitely a male thing where you need to
Man cave.
recharge. You actually, we did a great interview with John Gray years ago, and he said, look, men produce testosterone
In their downtime.
and so it is necessary for them to have downtime. So here's a couple things. I don't know if this is about boundaries, but I got a couple ideas for you, Krista. And she says, that's what my fiance does, putters, right? So I think you need to decide, and you're going to be the one probably in charge of this because you're better at it. You're more equipped at planning ahead, right? Just like Orna tends to control our social calendar for the most part. You're going to set a day, and you're going to get his agreement. You're going to say this day, Friday night, Saturday night, whatever it is, that's us time. That is time for us to be together. That's a date night. That's a movie night. That's a dinner night. Stay in, whatever you want to call it.
Sexy
but
time.
it's going to be structured and in the calendar. It's not going to be like, oh, we don't have anything else to do, so we'll just sit and watch TV tonight. No, it's not that. It's got to be like a structured time that is the two of you time.
Couples time.
Couples time, and you can do whatever you want with that time, but structure it. That's going to help in terms of filling in the space on this thing about, the balance between you, your social life, and your relationship.
And there is, look, I am really bad. I've gotten really bad at being spontaneous. I mean, I used to be. I was great, and I loved being spontaneous. My girlfriends would text me, and I'd run off to something. I mean, I remember was showing up. I worked in the music industry, but I went to work, and I ended up at a concert. I mean, it's just like, or I ended up at the Lakers game, or whatever. I mean, I used to just be able to roll like that, but now everything in my life is structured because I'm a grown-up. And so clients on the calendar and blah, blah, blah. And like earlier, one of my dear friends from high school, I can't even remember the last time I saw her. And she's like, do you want to meet me in the Valley for the Barbie movie tonight? Like when I'm done with this live stream, right? When I'm done with this, I'm going to the Valley to see the Barbie movie. Anybody else want to come? Here's the thing. I was like, I have to talk to my hubby and see. And I was like texting her back. And I mean, I didn't say, like, I don't need Matthew's approval to make plans, but I mean, we've got a lot of going on. I'm like, can I really just take the night off? And so if there's a balance, there's a structure, and then there's places for wiggle room in the structure. So it's kind of like what we talked about in the boundaries earlier about asking him, was once a week enough putter time for him? Maybe, Sundays are a day off in our house. Now, Sundays are also, when there's football season, which lasts all year in our house, are taken up with football because that's when the games are. But then you find out there's a Monday night game and there's a Thursday night game.
I don't make the schedule.
But the football games are literally in our calendar. That's the one thing he puts on our calendar. I put everything else on the calendar.
You're funny. I put other things in the calendar.
Matthew puts the Chiefs game on the calendar. So there's this balance, and I don't want to spend like 20 minutes privately coaching this one person, but do you see how you have the communication around who's making the calendar, what's in there, where there's wiggle room, and you play around with it for a few weeks
We have a
or
shared
months.
We have a shared
Yeah, we
calendar
have a
on the
shared-
device.
Or are you showing them your bunny?
I'm showing them, yes, it is the
We
year of the
both-
rabbit.
It's the year of the rabbit. So our screen savers
Right.
on our phones
Here,
are
let's-
both the year of the hare. So
Right. We have a shared,
we have a
it's
shared
not showing up.
No,
We
they
have
don't
a
need to see
shared
our
calendar.
It says love
right?
intervention.
There
right
are some
now.
things in there that are work things because we work together, but there are other things in there that are things we're doing together, and we calendar them.
Yeah.
And it's a calendar that if I put something in there, it's in Orna's calendar too because it's connected.
Yes.
Because we're in a relationship, and so we can connect our calendars.
Yeah. That
right?
calendar, the one we share, is called O&M calendar. It's really easy. I have other things that remind me to do stuff that Matthew doesn't need to see. Right? And so it's not like I'm keeping secrets. It's just he doesn't need an alarm for when I remember to whatever, you know. So I'm just saying it's this idea of making space and then seeing how it goes and leaving the wiggle room. So he's not into the shared calendar, but he asked me what's on our, as in my calendar. Well, then maybe you don't make it digital. Maybe you have a paper calendar that's up on the wall. I mean, again, I don't want it to turn into like a private session around this stuff. But there has to be some kind of compromise where if you're like, look, it's super easy for me if it's digital and see if you'll wiggle on it. You know, why don't we try it for a month? And if you hate it, we'll go back.
Yeah.
Try a paper calendar that's, you know, on the kitchen refrigerator or up on
Yeah.
a bulletin board or
There's
whatever.
a lot of ways to do that.
There's a lot of different ways to do it as a family, right? And, you know, look, there's tons of articles about this too, about being productive with your time as a couple. There's a lot of different ways for you to get other resources.
All right, we have another question here.
Wow, that was a loud sneeze. I'm sorry if I did that in anybody's ear.
Okay, this person's anonymous, which is totally fine. She says, my sister, when I got divorced for the second time, kept a lot of distance from me. I finally demanded she come over and talk to me. She didn't even know where I was living. When she came over without her overbearing husband, she said, I don't know what to tell my kids. Yes, I understand, but tell them at their age level Auntie Nancy is divorced. Kids know what divorce is. I try to
don't
stay
understand
close,
the
but I am the black
question.
sheep being divorced. Your thoughts on boundaries with my sister?
I'm a little confused. There's so many details. I'm not sure what the problem is. So I need a clear question rather than all of those details. I don't understand what the problem is.
It doesn't sound like that your sister is encroaching on your boundaries. It sounds like she's created a boundary with you. And I know sometimes that doesn't feel good when somebody creates a boundary with you and maybe doesn't explain that they've created a boundary with you. But it sounds like that's what's happened, is because of her feelings, beliefs, judgments about your lifestyle, right? That she's decided to create some space between you.
Oh, you actually understand the question. I
Yeah.
didn't understand it.
Yeah.
So you feel like you're the black sheep because you got divorced. And so I think part of that is that you made a choice. Like sometimes people judge others, like, you know, it's almost like saying like getting divorced is like a virus somebody else might catch. Like they don't want their
Right.
kids to know and whatever.
Yeah.
And you kind of have to be okay with living your life, right? I think this is the hardest part sometimes. Again, we assume family on the dartboard is close, and it's clearly you and your sister don't have a close relationship anymore. I think it's not about setting a boundary with her. I think it's about asking her if she wants a relationship with you, and letting her know that you would like to have one.
Yeah.
Despite
And I
the
think
fact that you're
I think
divorced.
making demands is not the way to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just say, look, you're important to me, and I would like to have you in my life, and I don't know what that looks like. It seems like you've been wanting to keep a distance, and that you have just ask her, about if she wants a relationship with you, and I think it's to go from there.
Yeah.
It sounds like she's set a hard boundary, and I don't, and I'm sorry for that. And I know that
You know-
sometimes people, we can be. I think the place for you to be is instead of taking it personal, and I understand that it feels personal, but instead of taking it personally, there's 3 things that you want to do: is never deny, never defend, because that doesn't go well, and you don't no deny, defend, or personalize. And I'm going to tell you why in a really weird way. But way back in acting class, I remember this one assignment with, like, I could start name dropping here because I studied with a lot of people you now know because they're famous. And the one exercise nobody could ever win is, okay, you're up on stage and you're in an insane asylum and there's a panel of people, like 3 or 4 or 5 people, that you have to convince you're not insane and you deserve to be released from the insane asylum. You can't win that argument. And I don't care if you're the best actor on the planet, can't win it. And that's kind of where the situation you're in with you and your sister is. She has, whether it's a judgment or an opinion, whether it's false or true, you can't control what she thinks of you. But if you want a relationship with her, it's about being curious about her. So if you come from a place of curiosity, don't deny, don't defend, and don't personalize. Because whatever is going on with her is the goggles she's wearing to see you through those. So she doesn't see you as you really are. And I think it's about opening up that curiosity and just letting her know that you would like to have a relationship with her.
Yeah.
And then see where there's wiggle room to negotiate common ground.
Yeah. And if her spouse is the one setting the hard boundary and she's choosing her spouse over you, then that's, unfortunately, you may have to feel some grief about that, but that's a choice the person can make. We may not agree with choices people make, but people have the right to make choices, right?
Yeah.
And, that's it. It's unfortunate sometimes when people make a choice to cut you out of their life and you would rather that doesn't happen. But I think it's something that a person has a right to do. And, part of it is finding acceptance with that. We have another question from Tara. Can we show our anger when we get triggered? Do you want to take that one?
No, I was waiting for you to take it.
Yes, we can show our anger when we get triggered. And one of the easiest ways to show your anger when you're triggered is to say, I am feeling so angry, right? You know what's great about that statement? It's an I statement. And it's taking responsibility and expressing how you feel. Now, if you start, doing other things and saying, you're making me angry, and you, and I hate you.
So much
right?
finger pointing.
All that finger pointing and stuff. Now, it happens. I'm not saying that, it doesn't happen over here, because sometimes it does happen when we get triggered.
They don't know.
We're angry. Sometimes we do the finger pointing thing, and we look at the other person and say, you're the problem. Right?
So
but that doesn't help anybody.
Let me explain a little bit about what happens when we're triggered. So right now, if you're just sitting calmly listening to us, your whole mental faculties are working just fine. All the wheels are turning. When we're triggered, it's like this big prefrontal cortex goes offline. Like if you have a Mac, if your Mac doesn't boot up and you get the sad Mac face, right? It's like this does that. And then what happens is this little part of your brain back here, it's called the amygdala, and it is your reptilian brain. And it has a few settings: fight, flight, and freeze. Fight, flight, and freeze. So when we're triggered, we are triggered literally into one of those states from the reptilian brain with this part of our brain offline. Fight. Oh, we're going to fight. Or rah, or I can look like that too.
Yeah.
Or flight, run away, fly away, right? Flight, or freeze. Am I doing okay with my little faces?
You are. Your faces are great.
Do you want to say some more about fight, flight, and freeze?
Well, when you're in a fight, flight, freeze state, there's really nothing you can do except calm yourself down.
That's the only thing.
That's the only thing there is to do when you are in that triggered space of fight, flight, freeze. And so our job when we're in a relationship is to recognize when we're triggered and to say, I'm feeling triggered. I need to take a pause, or I need to take a break so I can go calm myself down.
Okay, calming yourself down. Here's the thing. A lot of times when we're in a relationship, there are some people that think, I'm upset and you need to do this so I can calm down.
Oof. Blah.
Let's give it all the thumbs down.
Oh.
Two, all four. All 4 thumbs. Down. No. And what's that song? No.
Yeah.
That's the Amy Winehouse. They
Yeah.
tried to make me go to rehab. I said no.
no,
Oh yeah,
right?
I'm not singing that one. Okay. But no. The only person who is responsible for calming your nervous system is you. So it's perfectly okay to show your hurt, anger, sad, but the thing is, what happens when we're triggered is it's on autopilot. So we talk about having a mental, emotional pattern, and so whatever comes up, it's whatever, all that stuff. Fight, flight, freeze is an instinctual thing. It's a survival mechanism. That's why it's from our reptilian brain. So you don't have to. You're acting on instinct in a sense. You could say it's almost instinctual because our strategies are so set by the time we're a grown up. And so being a grown up means you can recognize you're triggered at some point, hopefully as early as possible, and then you take a pause and then you calm your own nervous system. And the easiest way to do that is through breath work, if you've done any kind of breath work. But we're not going to get too deep into it, that kind of stuff tonight, because I think we're really
talking about controlling your breathing.
Boundaries.
Yeah. So
boundaries.
I want to come back because the woman who got divorced and had an issue with her sister says this: "Thank you. I never thought of it that way, and I will reach out. Thank you, Matthew, for understanding my complicated question, and Orna for a beautiful answer. Thank you both. Been following you for years. I'm in Parma, Ohio." Oh, well, you're welcome. I'm so glad that we could be of service. I'm so glad you could hear us, and have a different understanding of what's going on.
And a new viewpoint.
So with that in mind, for those of you who want to get more resourceful in your love life, who want to be able to recognize and stop your triggers, who want to get into that place to where you're making better choices, where you have clear boundaries, you know how to set them, join us for Love on Purpose Mentoring. It is a small group coaching program. It is a virtual group coaching program, so you can live wherever you are. You're not even going to be on camera.
Nope.
You'll be able to talk to us, but you don't have to. You could be in your pajamas.
We're on the old telephone
with a cup of tea,
line. That's it. It's so no video, and I know sometimes public figures tune in. Public figures. We've had people come in and email us and say, "Don't call me by my real name," even though we only use first names.
Yep.
Call me by
JoJo or whatever it is, right?
So
you get to be anonymous.
You can be
if you want, if you
anonymous.
need to be.
If you need to change your name so people don't know who you are, I don't care. Come and join us for Love on Purpose Mentoring, because the thing about the mentoring is you set the agenda. You get the help you need. You become more resourceful in every area of your life. This is the thing that's so beautiful about the way this kind of work pays off. That undigested knowledge gets digested, and basically you get to have a new experiential learning, so you're showing up differently. And when you start showing up more like your real authentic self, the other parts of your life get better. And so I always say coaching with us is like it's a life makeover for a love makeover. I started to mess it up. It's a life makeover for a love makeover. And look, 2 turns in the love seat, we're like whacking at this tree. It's like a big old oak tree. So we're going to take a good couple whacks at it. But let me tell you the benefit of the small group, because everybody rides the coattails of everybody else's work. When we're talking, say, with Sally while she's in the love seat and coaching Sally in the love seat, you don't have any emotions attached to Sally's details. So you hear us differently as we're coaching her. And the process work is like in your brain. So the thing is, just like computers on a network, when you go to work and they're all hooked up together, your brain is connected to everybody else's. And so by listening in on that process work, you receive benefit as well. So it's kind of like a all boats rise together kind of situation. And we'd love to have you join us. It is a small group, and I'm really glad we're doing it again. We start September 9th. All right, we're going to do one more question, then we're going to wrap things up.
Okay, short answer though. There's a man that invited me to go to a concert that he purchased tickets to. I said I would be open to going, and he immediately said I wouldn't have to pay for the ticket. Okay, I spoke with my therapist, and she said that I insist to pay something for the ticket, so he doesn't have to hold anything over me. In this moment, I'm not interested in dating him. I don't know how far to go into this.
I don't understand. I mean, if you are I'm confused. I know this person is asking us, but she clearly has a therapist that told her something. I don't want to play tug of war with the therapist.
Right.
So I think we're gonna take a pass. I don't think we've ever done that on Love on Purpose.
Yeah, I don't want to contradict what you've already got. Somebody in your life who's giving your advice.
You're already basically in it with somebody to assist you, and I'm not going to play tug of war with that person. We don't have it's out of respect to your therapist, honestly, that I'm just not touching it. But thank you for joining us here at Love Intervention. I don't think we've ever taken a pass on a question before. I hope you don't mind. Don't take it personally. It's just I'm not going to do that. It's that high level of integrity I have. I don't.
I would just say, I just want to say one thing about it. Think
Yeah.
about what your therapist said, the advice you got from your therapist. Feel it into your gut. Does it feel good? Does it feel like this advice is advice I can take and it feels good to take it? Or does it feel like this feels uncomfortable? I don't like this. This doesn't feel right to me. Then don't take it. You are your own authority ultimately, right? What
Yes.
we say, what your therapist says, are just somebody's thoughts about it. I mean, we have certain thoughts because we do this for a living and we do it every day when we're coaching people, so we have specific thoughts about it. However, you're your own authority. You're the person who gets to decide what's right for you and not right for you. And that's why when we're talking about boundaries, that's what we're talking about. Ultimately, I'm bringing it back around. You get to decide what is right for you and what is not right for you. Nobody else gets to tell you what is right for you and not right for you. So,
We don't coach like that. We don't tell people do this, do that. That's just not how we work. And so, and we're out of time. So, I appreciate you asking the question. I'm sorry we're taking it past. Matthew, you handled that beautifully. That's why I'm bowing.
You're
because
very
he's
sweet.
The master. So good. I love working with my husband. Who wants to have a wonderful love relationship? Anybody? Anybody? Join us for Love on Purpose mentoring because honestly, it will change your life. It's been a pleasure speaking with you all today on our Love and Adventure. We'll be back in 2 weeks. That makes it, 8/8.
yep.
Really? We'll be back on August the 8th, 8/8/23, 5 p.m. Pacific time, 8 p.m. Eastern. Look it up if you're in another time zone. Thank you for joining us this evening.
Yeah, thank you to our
And have-
team for helping us.
Yes, thank you to our team. Have a great night.